Michael, you are quite the Cupid. You can stick an arrow into my buttocks anytime. Today on the Manspace.
Welcome to the Manspace podcast. We're your hosts, Doctors Matt Brown and Rob Porter, and clinical therapist Mike Porter.
Welcome, lovebirds, to another episode of the Manspace. So wait a minute, is that like, what's that quote from?
That's Tobias from Arrested Development.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Think it's when they're talking about their they have that spa package thing.
Yeah.
And I think he gives it to him. Yeah.
Yeah, that one is a classic. Well, you said Michael, and so for a second I thought he's either inserting my name or he's quoting Arrested Development.
Yeah.
Because I thought there's nowhere else that could come from.
So many lines. I can't remember if it's that episode or another one where Michael's like this will date the show, right? He's like, see, what you do is you get a tape recorder and you just record yourself for a day. I think you're going to be surprised at some of your phrasing. And then he's like listening to it later, like, out of context. Great show.
Oh, I never even made it through the fourth season. Did you ever make it through the fourth season?
I went through all of them eventually, but yeah, it's just
I heard season 5 got a lot better than season 4.
It was better because season 4 was just like a person per episode, basically.
Yeah,
catching you up on everybody. But yeah, it's still just, I think anything that doesn't have anything for years and then comes back to it, I think it really I would imagine as an actor, it's like, yeah, I know this character, but I can't do it the same way anymore. And it just, and how do I integrate the years in between? And we've talked about Gilmore Girls before, and I still haven't watched it, but my girls all say the reboot was really lame. So
yeah, that's one of those. Jenner finally finished the series, and honestly, the deeper it went, the more irritated I got. Mm-hmm. Just because I just the amount of bad relationship decisions that I saw being made, I was like, oh my gosh, you're a complete idiot.
Yeah.
No one would really do this.
No, I think that's kind of it's funny because I guess it probably rings true with the whole arc of some of the characters, but yeah, the way that the decisions they make at the end, it's kind of well, that's the thing you were trying to avoid happening the whole time,
and now here you are.
Yeah.
No, so that was Jenner said at some point, she's like, I'll probably watch the other one at some point. Mm-hmm. But I will say, because I asked Jenner, I'm like, so how did you end up watching this show? And she said, I was just looking for shows that felt like fall. And she goes, and this was on every single list of great fall shows.
That's true.
And admittedly, I don't think I've ever seen a show that feels quite so much like fall all the time.
Small town, fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's just one of those where I was like, oh, yeah, okay, well, they nailed that aspect of it, I guess.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting. I don't think I've ever thought of wanting a show to feel like a season.
That's kind of how we function at my house. we do a lot of feel things like today. So that's part of why I was late. So Jane has some pretty, we're working on getting her in with somebody and probably medicated, but her anxiety gets pretty bad around less now. When she was a kid, it was all around storms. Mm-hmm. Now it is illness, particularly throwing up.
Yeah, dude, that's a common one.
Yeah, I can't even make the because she's like, no, don't. Now most of the time she knows what I'm kidding, but so Macy's birthday is tomorrow, and Jane's best friend her birthday is also tomorrow, and that's who Macy lives with, right? Lives with
Mhm.
that family. And so the older sister said, "Hey, what if I buy you a plane ticket to fly you down to be here for their birthdays?
Mhm.
And we'll just make it a surprise." And so we were like, oh, like, sure, if that's what she wants to do.
Yeah.
So she did. And then Jenner was talking to Macy today and found out that that her best friend, that Jane's best friend, has a fever of like 101 or something like that. And that just spiked her.
Yeah.
And so I was grabbing up a few, like, kind of Jenner and I and her kind of talking through it. Cause like I said, I said it to you, but they did virtual today. So Jane's home all day. And we have 2 couches that are identical couches. And when our kids were out of town a while ago, Jenner and I decided to put them together, and we call it the couch boat.
Nice.
Because we just
they like, yeah, you said 2 identical.
Yeah. So
couches,
they just line up exactly.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
we call it the couch boat. And so I went upstairs, was grabbing stuff before I had to leave, and I come back down. And Jenna goes, "Yeah, we're doing a couch boat." I was like, "Oh, good for you." And she goes, "I mean, look at the weather today. This is just couch boat day."
Yeah.
And I thought, they will now pick a movie that fits
Boat themed,
right?
cold weather.
This theme.
White squall.
Yeah. Because that's what we do apparently at my house. So yeah.
That's
couch
awesome.
boats and themed movies.
Yeah, I think the only time I do that is like, around Christmas or something. But
Right.
that's, yeah. But summer movies like Sandlot, things like that.
See?
Yeah.
That's how do you not?
Speaking of, dude, you remember that movie Whitewater Summer where Kevin Bacon is like basically like the scout leader, and he like,
No, we've talked about it on here before though, because Rob and I kept thinking of The River Wild, which also has
Yeah.
Kevin Bacon as a bad guy.
oh,
But
yeah, it's
no.
weird. It's like it doesn't resolve because he's a total like, pushing him too hard.
Yeah.
And then they just like revolt on him and knock him down this huge, like off this cliff. He breaks his leg, and then they
Right.
have to like implement their skills. But it's like, so you guys cool with each other now? Or like, he never really apologizes. It's like,
Well, because
okay.
it's the 80s.
Yeah.
So I mean, we know
Everybody
one
just jumps up in the air and freezes at the end.
I was gonna say, what do we know is true about the 80s? We know that that we believed and sold through television that gentle forms of abuse were okay, as long as you learn something at the end.
I learned how to splint a leg.
So the fact that I've been hanging out with this abusive scoutmaster for however long, it's okay.
Oh man.
Oh shoot.
So when this comes out, Valentine's Day will be
Like 2 days
2
later.
days away.
Yeah. Do you guys are you big Valentine people?
No, I mean, yes and no. So we like our first, I think I said this maybe on one of our previous years Valentine's episodes, but our very first Valentine's when we were married was like, dirt poor college students. So we had this like coupon book, and it had a coupon for some Italian restaurant we'd never been to. So we decided to go there, and I'm always a little bit like iffy about Italian because it's like, you can charge me $30 for like a box of noodles that I could go buy for $1. You put some
for
sauce
like
on
$2
it.
worth of food.
Yeah. So the food sucked. Like, it was like bad Italian food. Like, they gave me a piece of fish that was like about that big, like bones in it and skin on it still, just atop the sauce, the pasta. And I'm like, okay. So anyway, it was like a disappointing meal. And then we break out the coupon, and they're like, oh, so Valentine's is actually the only day we don't honor that coupon.
Oh my
I was
gosh.
like, screw you guys. So we just kind of like decided then, like, let's not do anything on Valentine's.
Yeah.
Everybody's trying to do, and it's like then it just feels like this mandatory thing. And so we do, like, when we had our kids and stuff, we do stuff for them on that day. But we really don't make a big deal out of it, but we'll do things here and there. I think now, like, Lisa always gets us all chocolates and stuff, and I usually get something for her intentionally on another day that week, just to be like a little bit of a boycott of a day that really, the thing I hate about holidays in our country especially is that, like, the real reason that we do what we do is all economic based, or like economy based, right? It's all like a capitalist undertone, but then it's like all these emotional overtones on top. Well, if you don't do it that way, you don't really love. And it's like,
right.
No, that's the day that you're going to charge more for everything and like make us all feel guilty if we don't do something. And so I've got beef with some of those holidays, but I think we've talked about this before too. Like, I don't know what other countries celebrate it, but when I lived in Mexico, it was like the day of friendship and love. And I was like, dude, that is way cooler. Because I think, well, we'll get into that a little bit more, but yeah, that's my thoughts on my opinion on Valentine's. But what about you?
Well, that's like, I'm kind of irritated because our ward this year is doing, sorry for anyone who might be listening from my ward. The Relief Society decided to host a Valentine's family dance.
Huh?
On Valentine's Day.
Are couples upset?
Well, that's so like the Relief Society president is like, I don't have kids.
Yeah.
Like, or she's like, we don't do anything for all the reasons you just mentioned. Mm-hmm. And that's Jenna and I, like, I've mentioned this before. We don't, like, our anniversary is like 5 days later. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing. Like, on any other day, I can get 24 roses from Costco for $20. Yeah. On Valentine's Day, I can get 12 roses from Costco for $20. So it's like, you guys charging me twice as much. Crap. And she's like, we don't do anything. She's like, we got, small kids, so babysitter, and like, it's really hard. And she's like, so we like to do family type things, which is like, we always do like a family dinner. We usually order like a heart-shaped pizza from somewhere.
Nice.
Just to kind of whatever. And then Jen and I will usually just like watch a movie and hang out. Mm-hmm. But so no, we don't really do anything. But I know I don't want to go to a family dance. Like, when Jenner came home and told me, and I was like, I'm not going. Mm-hmm. But then it like tying back to what you said, I'm thinking, yeah, but then if I don't go, I'm the jerk who didn't go to the Valentine's dance with his wife. Because she's like, right, she's in Relief Society, so she's in, like, she's kind of in charge of it, heading it up.
And everything, yeah.
And I'm like, great. So now I'm just like a giant douche if I don't go. But I'm like, I don't like dancing anyway.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, I've never been like, I would go to dances, but I only ever went to dances to slow dance with girls. Like, I didn't, fast dancing never held any appeal. Mm-hmm. I liked skanking when I used to go to ska shows. Yeah. But now I'm fat and out of shape and I can only skank for like 30 seconds before I'm like, I'm going to pass out now. So it's one of those where I'm like, yeah, I don't like, so I don't know. It's only from 6 to 8 PM. So we'd still probably come home and like watch a movie and hang out. But like, it happens that like Friday is our date night. So I'm like, oh, rad. So this is happening on my date night. Like, no, I wasn't really going to do anything for Valentine's anyway, but I sure wasn't going to go do that.
Yeah. Just bring your heart-shaped pizza and stuff your face in the corner and protest.
Right. Just sit there with a pizza all by myself.
Shoving pieces.
Can I have some pizza? No. You made me come to this thing. Oh, shoot. So yeah, I don't, it's like Valentine's Day, because I was a teacher for so long, right? So there was always a party on Valentine's.
Yeah.
So I enjoy the day. Like, I think it's fun it was, like, I loved watching the little kids get excited.
Yeah. Cause like, then, it's like you get cards for everybody in your class and everybody. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. See, that's kind of like the friendship side of it. Right. And it's fun to have a little crush here and there, but
all the ladies that I worked with, I had a stretch where I had some dudes on my team, but for the most part, I worked with like ladies my entire career.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so what are you doing for your wife for Valentine's Day?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. Oh, I would get like, they would
All
take
sorts
me
of
to
advice.
Yeah, like, you can't do that. And so Jenna and I started like the night before Valentine's. She'd be like, all right, here's what you're going to tell him. And we would just sit and like come up with, this is what I'm doing for my wife for Valentine's.
Mm-hmm.
And it was
Some
total
big
lie.
thing.
Yeah. And it was always a lie. Like, never did it. But it got them, like, they left me alone.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Did you ever ask them what's being done for them?
They would volunteer it. I didn't have to ask.
Okay. That is interesting too, because maybe there are guys out there that are asking what is being done for you on Valentine's, but
Probably not.
did you ever flip the question around on them?
What are you doing for your husband?
Yeah.
A couple that I was close to, but they would actually do stuff for their husbands.
Yeah.
But no, like, I generally just tried to avoid the conversation as much as I could.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to get out of the conversation as fast as I could because I was tired of being shamed for apparently having married a woman who didn't care.
Yeah.
Like, Jenner's not a big, she's not a big, like, gifter, meaning, like, for me to get her like a bunch of little gifts for Valentine's Day, she doesn't really care.
Doesn't really. Yeah.
Mm-mm. She'd rather have, a note or something than a little gift.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The meaningful stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I spilled my drink today. I was really sad.
Like before you jumped on, so you
like in the
drinking
parking
water?
lot. I was walking in, and I don't know, it slipped out of my hand, I guess, and just like all over the parking lot. I was like, well, that sucks. It's cool that way. When I go to the doctor today and they ask me how much soda I drink, I'll be like, well, I drink more water than I do soda, which is true, actually.
I've recently cut down.
Recently cut back quite a bit, actually. Well, how much you had today? Only like 16 ounces.
Yeah, I need to go get blood work. I'm waiting until like March, I think.
How come?
I just want to see. I guess I don't really have any reference point from before, because the last time I had a blood panel was like, I don't even remember when. But I'm curious what range I'll be in after. I guess that'll be 5 months of eating like whole food, plant-based.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, it'd be awesome to have had a comparison, but
right.
But yeah, I got to make that appointment, but you've got yours. And I thought that when we were texting about today, I thought that, Rob was saying he had a doctor's appointment, but yeah, for you listeners out there, Rob is actually doing the thing that we're kind of railing on today. Celebrating his anniversary. No, we wouldn't rail on anniversaries. No,
no, anniversaries I do celebrate.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think about I'm trying to think of where I heard this, but the whole like mandated thing, I think, is what turns me off.
Mm-hmm.
And that what that doesn't mean is that I don't do anything, right? But it's more like not even so much mandated, but like when somebody's telling me that I should be doing something and they're clearly benefiting from it, like it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And so we've talked about, I think on a previous episode, the story of De Beers, the diamond people. there's a whole like they were jewelers, you know, they've been jewelers for I don't know how long. So like early 19th century, I think. I'm going to get these dates wrong because that doesn't make sense for people having a lot of money. But anyway, a long time ago, there was like diamonds were like what's the word I'm looking for? Plentiful.
Mm-hmm.
They had like an overstock of diamonds, and they were selling all these other gems, and they had to find a way to offload all these diamonds basically. So they like made this huge marketing campaign that, you know, diamonds are forever. And, you know, if you are a man who loves his woman, you'll be willing to spend like 3 months salary on her. And it's like the infiltration of like, you aren't a good husband unless you like open your wallet for me.
Yeah.
That's the part where I'm like, if I want to open my wallet because I want to, you know, give freely, and, you know, whoever's taking that money, I'm not whatever. Like but like narratives like that try to dictate even like the conversation you're having, right? Like if you're not doing anything for her, we're not even asking you like, is that something that you guys value as a couple, or is that something that she likes? It's like, it's just understood that if you don't do that, that means you're a bad husband. And if you do it, it means you're a good one. Right. And again, the fact that we center it solely on the couple relationship. But I mean, there's other things, obviously, like school parties, stuff you do for your kids.
Right.
But what I wonder is like, why don't we reach out to our friends on that day? Right.
Well, so that was I was thinking about this, right? Because Rob's not, well, yeah, Matt already said he's not here. So like, you can't see he's not here. Rob had kind of suggested we talk about, you know, like how as men we can express love to one another. And I thought about, I think it was Parks and Rec probably.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably like, I don't remember really hearing about it before, but the whole Valentine's Day thing.
Yeah.
Right. Which was just her celebration with her friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, yeah, girls do that.
Yeah.
We don't.
And the best we get is a Tobias Funke quote.
Right? Which, I mean, that's going to be going on the wall in my office at some point.
And on your invitations to your, what would that even be? Bro-lentines?
Well, I was like,
Dudentines?
Do it. If you called it Bro-lentines, you could do it at a bowling alley, because that sounds similar to me.
Guys, we have a party with balls. Come
and celebrate your love for your brothers. Yeah, like, but it is, right? Like, those are things that are generally not socially acceptable. Like, I was talking on Sunday, and I've told it on here before, probably years ago. The story of when I first really kind of met someone who ended up being one of my good friends. Mm-hmm. He came up, and I was taking over a leadership position. He'd been working with the previous leader. And so he comes up and he's like, hey, and he's like, we got to try this on for size. Mm-hmm. And I was like, try what on for size? And he comes and he just kind of wraps me in a big hug. And he's a little bit taller than I am. Mm-hmm. Right. So he's a little bit bigger than me, wraps me in a big hug, wraps a leg around me, and then does the double leg. Right. And
see if you could hold him up.
Yeah. And I just start, cracking up, and I'm laughing, and he goes, this will be just fine. And that was just him, right? Like, he would always, like, every time he saw me, it was a huge hug. And mm-hmm. At one point he came into church, and we always sat kind of towards the back of the chapel. And he came in, and the meeting had already started. So he wasn't going to interrupt to give me a big giant hug. Mm-hmm. So he comes up and gently places his hands on my head and leans down and just kisses me ever so gently, right on the top of my head. And the first time, like, I could feel myself flush. Yeah. Right. Like, I was like, what
are you doing?
You just kissed me on my head. in front of 250 people, right? Like, but it just kind of became his thing. He was almost always late. So like every Sunday I'd be sitting there and he'd come in and he'd lean down and plant a kiss on my head. And if I saw him, like anytime I would see him, like during the week, he would, you know, kind of grab my head, pull me down and kiss the top of my head. And it was just what he did. And I mean, it reached a point where not only did it not make me uncomfortable, it continued to make people around me uncomfortable. I didn't care. Not only did it not make me uncomfortable, but it got to a point where I would frequently kiss him on his cheek when I would see him. And I had a few friends that I would do that with. And then I remember the one time, it was my other friend, I think, Scooter. And he, we'd been sitting there chatting and I went to go leave and he goes, "All right, love you, man." And I didn't say anything because like I had like, I mean, this would have been
Solo, man. I know.
Right. So I was just kind of like, and I wasn't thinking fast enough to do the solo. I know. And I didn't really say anything anyway. He totally called me out for it. And he's like, "What, do you not love me?" And I was like, no, I do. And he goes, "Oh, but you can't say it. That's what it is. You can't say it." And I was just like, like, what is happening? And I mean, this one would have been before the guy that would hug me and kiss me. And so like, again, it's not something I was super comfortable with, but because they called it out, I was like, all right, well, this is what we're doing now. And so it is, and very much among, in particular, that circle of friends, we tell each other we love each other all the time. It doesn't faze any of us. In fact, I can't imagine ending a phone call without saying it. I do, like, I'll chat with them every once in a while, but I'll do it over Zoom, and so it'll sometimes feel like I'm client talking.
Yeah.
So then when I go from one of those into a session with a client, I have to catch myself at the end to not tell my client I love them.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh no, that would be inappropriate. But it is this interesting, like, and again, this is kind of a topic that we've, I mean, I remember doing it at least once. We talked about platonic love. But I mean, one, when in your work with men, because like, I think you work with more men for sure, I think, than I do, on an individual basis. And honestly, I've always thought, you get that demographic really well. Like, I think you are able to connect with men in a way that, like, honors and respects where they're at and their masculinity and all of those things, while still saying, "Hey, come and be something different."
Yeah.
So in your work with men, like, do you find, or do you get the sense that a lot of these men, like, want to be able to more openly express, particularly to people not their wife, their feelings?
Yes and no, I guess. I'll explain that. But I think, as you were talking, I was thinking about this line from Britta from Community, when it's like an episode where the girls are trying to take like a women's studies class, and Abed like jumps in, and then there's this whole like female aggression thing going on, and then but she says, I can't remember what was going on between her and Jeff, but like she says, like, we need to stop defining our gender by theirs. And, you know, they're talking about all these themes, and I think as men, we need to stop defining our relationships, or I guess other people need to stop defining our relationships based on like women's definition of friendship. And so one of the books I'm reading right now is like talking about some example where, man, I can't remember if it was like a sports example or a work situation, but some guy like did something dumb, and a coach or a coworker, I can't remember now, was like, hey, don't do that, right? Because like this is what's going to happen. And but it was kind of like a harsh correction.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy was like, but I felt loved. Like I felt like that was a supportive statement because he was watching out for me. And we've talked about this before too, but like Secondhand Lions is a really good show that illustrates like you feel the love. I don't know if women feel it looking at those relationships too, but it's like I think sometimes the way we talk about it is like, well, yeah, I guess we'll take like the second rate version of you expressing your love for me by like not saying it, but it'd be better if you did, but I get why you don't, so I'll take what I can get.
Right.
But
it's still
I think in a lot of cases it's like, no, that means more to me than him telling me we're good friends or whatever. Those are meaningful too, right? But I think it's not like this one's second best and this one's first best. I think it's just a different type of expression. So I think when guys are really struggling with something, sometimes it is like, yeah, tell me about your pain, tell me about what you're carrying. And like with that video we watched before, right? Like, let me be somebody who empathizes with you right now, because you probably don't ever get that, right? And your feelings matter to you, and I want you to know they matter to me too. And other times I think it's like you just show up, right? Like I think of this was in like a talk from way back. I'm trying to remember when it was, but this guy like was doing some donation stuff and hopped in his truck to go drop off the donations and backed over his son.
Yeah.
And his son died in like horrible accident. Like, and so his friend just showed up at his house. Like, I can't remember if he just like went into his bedroom or what, but like 5 a.m, like, dude, we're going to go play basketball.
Yeah.
And
I remember the story.
Yeah. So like every morning that dude was there, like without fail. And obviously like it wasn't like you need to get your mind off this and go play basketball. It's like,
right,
I know you're in pain and I'm not going to force you to do anything with it, but I'm right here. And what happened as a result was all these conversations that came out when they needed to come out, the way that they needed to come out. And that dude was just there. And I think that's really important too, right? And I think sometimes if we force like, oh, well, you guys are hanging out, well, why don't you tell each other how much and it's like, maybe that's not what needs to happen right now. But it doesn't always mean that we're like really yearning to say those things and just can't. Sometimes I think, sometimes for sure that happens, but it's not always. And I think it gets communicated in a lot of different ways. And I wish that we held up as like healthy and good and celebrated those types of things just like we do the emotional expression. Because I mean, you probably talked about this in your master's program when you're getting into like cultural differences in terms of expression, right? And we just live in a culture that really views emotional expression as like the pinnacle of intimacy, and closeness, and it is one part of it for sure, but there's so many other ways to show how you feel about somebody and for them to like feel it, hear it, see it. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, it's interesting because I can't think of any, like, it's killing me. I've been trying to think of a specific example, but as you started talking about this kind of this shift in dynamic, right? How no, men often won't communicate it verbally, right? Like those two friends, Scooter and Mike was his name, is his name. He's not dead or anything. Scooter and Mike, like, no, they happen to both be really good at verbal expressions of love, right? Mike, physical, obviously, right? A willingness to hug, and although he would tell me he loved me all the time. But those two guys were also, when everything, when my son initially kind of started making some decisions that were sketchy, it was really hard for me. And I reached out to a few of my friends and just kind of said, hey, I need some help. Like this has been really hard. It's, it's causing me to question a lot of, like me. And I'm just kind of struggling to grab a hold of something. And my friend Mike reached out and he goes, all right, well, we're going fishing Saturday. And I've mentioned this on here before, and the three of us went, and we barely talked about what was going on with my kid.
Yeah.
But the fact that both of them, so very quickly just like, all right, I have no idea what they had planned for Saturday. I know that's what we did on Saturday.
Yeah.
Right. They might have had something else planned, but nope, we went fishing. And there's so many movies that I can think of where, you watch these fathers and sons. I mean, the easiest and most obvious answer is Field of Dreams. Right at the very end. Yeah. Hey, Dad, do you want to have a catch?
Yeah.
And like, I certainly remember having friends be like, I don't get it. What's the big deal? And I mean, they get it ish, but I'm like, no, I'm almost certain they don't feel the impact of it the way that, it just is. I can connect to it very personally.
Yeah.
Right. And, not like I had the kind of dynamic he had, but just other examples where you just see these small gestures because they don't know how else to do it. And so they find other ways to communicate. And as much as I kind of get after it with my clients when they'll come chatting, like the 5 love languages, and I'm just like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's a great conversation starter. Go ahead. And yet, I think if you look at it, no, men do say I love you all the time. It's usually going to come through one of those other, like, it's probably not going to come through physical touch. And it's probably not going to come through like the verbal, right? It's probably going to come through acts of service. It's going to come through these other things where, or like I knew, like I can look at a handful of things and I think, oh, they're just trying to make a connection with me. Like I can see like they're bringing up this thing that I'm pretty sure they don't care about, but they're sitting here and asking me about it because they just want the connection.
Yeah.
And as men, I think it's important to start learning how to recognize those things, to start seeing like, oh, because this has come up a lot with me. And we've talked about again before, just the number of people that men in particular that are like, yeah, I don't really have any friends. I've talked to a couple guys in the last 3 weeks where they're like, yeah, up until COVID.
Yeah.
And then everything kind of, and now I don't really have guy friends anymore. And there's that part of me that thinks you probably do. You probably have people trying to connect with you.
Yeah.
They're not going to, they're not going to invite you to Valentine's Day or Bro-lentines. Like that's not happening.
Yeah.
But they are probably trying to connect with you. You just have to learn to look for it.
Yeah.
What do you recommend to these, like when guys come to you and say, I don't I don't feel connected, or I don't feel this, or I don't have a circle of friends. What's your recommendation for them?
No, as you were talking about that, I was just thinking about this. I mean, there's layers of change and barriers probably for a lot of guys, but I cannot remember this guy's name. He has a podcast. He's a big podcaster.
Jacko?
No. I think it's Chris Williams, maybe. He's actually in Austin. Something wisdom podcast or something. But anyway, he was saying that, I don't know where this research was done, or he just was spouting off a finding, but it's like because of male loneliness, the average man needs like 2 outings per week with other guys to like establish relationships and have that support network. And his comment was like, from his perspective, he's like, can you imagine a guy saying I need that? And how many people would say, no, this is more important, or you don't have time for that, or you need to be there for me, or, so like, obviously this has to be held in balance with like family relationships, couple relationships, work, and things like that. Right. And I think most guys will probably just accept that as a loss, and then not be bringing any livelihood to those other areas of their lives. Like, in a way, it's not like that's the only place that you feel alive, right? But I think a lot of guys are okay just being half dead, really.
Yeah.
Like, and just kind of getting through it and giving what they can to, but that's why it's always like just enough or less in those other relationships. And I don't think that it's like, we're talking about guys where it's like, hey dude, you have all these groups of guys that are like dying to hang out with you, and they're all getting along and doing stuff and inviting you all the time, and you're just not showing up. I think everybody's in the same boat. And so getting something started is like super difficult, but, and I'm guilty of it too, right? I feel horrible about this every Saturday morning. I don't know if this guy listens to the podcast, but there's a guy at church that like both he and I, like we're talking about this, and he's in a situation where he's like, yeah, I need to get out. And so I was like, dude, let's just go play pickleball. Right. I've never played. Let's just go to Chicken and Pickle. Is the place that we have here. So we invited a couple other guys, and we went, and it was like a blast. Like, we're all at the time, we're all like, why am I freaking this sore after playing basically like real life ping pong, like on the table ping pong.
Yeah.
But it was like such a good thing that night that we're like, dude, we got to do this like once a month. So we kind of talked about that. And then at church we can play for free. So we're like, oh, well, dude, let's just do this every Saturday and see who shows up. Right. Yeah. So he like spearheads it like religiously. He's like every week, midweek, like sending text out to everybody, hey man, pickleball. And the hard part is like, because of early morning schedules throughout the week and stuff, it's like, oh, Saturday morning, 7:00.
Yeah.
But so I went to the first couple, and then had a big drought, and then went a couple weeks ago and missed last week. And but the cool thing was there's another guy we know that's like really struggling and just going through a lot in his life. And he was like, we were in another meeting talking, and he was there, and he's like, this guy probably doesn't know this. And he was the guy that sends out the text was there. He's like, but those texts mean the world to me. Like, I think I've come once, but the fact that he thinks about me and says, hey dude, come play. It's like, I can't tell you how much that means to me. And the other guy's like, well, cool. Now I feel like I'm freaking actually making a difference. No one's showing up to these things, but we always have like, there's always enough people to play, but it's cooler when you see like a bunch of people coming in, right, and you can sub in and sub out. But But yeah, I think that the biggest barrier, I think, is a lot of guys that are feeling that way are probably so deep into numbing the pain already that their first response is just going to be like, I'm good. Right? Like, I don't know how you're going to get me to really like talk about this as a problem. So I think the conversation usually starts there, where it's like, I don't have time for that, or I'm not really interested. But I do have some guys where it's like, yeah, I would love that. I just don't know where to start. And for guys that are just maybe more disconnected generally, like they've got their family and work and that's about it. Like they don't really have any other community they're a part of. That's a harder one because it's just like a cold calling thing, you know?
Right.
And, but, yeah, I wish we were more able to like, and I've thought about this clinically, like, I need to start something where a lot of my guy clients, we can all get together and do some sort of not necessarily like traditional men's group, although I think that would be really helpful. But something like that. Cause yeah, I've got a lot of guys that are just like, dude, if there was something, I'd be there. And I'm like, you know, because of, ethical barriers, I can't be like, well, let's hang out. Right. But like,
Right.
but if it was in a different setting, just to like jumpstart something, and then you could start something up as a therapist and then say, okay, now you guys run it, you guys take it. Right. And now you've all met each other. Now you've got relationships, go for it. So yeah, I think there's a lot of barriers. And I think, I definitely don't think that's a reason not to keep trying and talking about it, though. I think that's really the only thing that's going to move the needle, is just continuing to throw it out there and seeing what sticks.
Well, and like to me, right, because I was just thinking about like I have, and the way our church is structured, like it's a built-in community wherever I go. I can show up like new the first week, and there's this activity coming up. You guys coming?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of, that's the norm. But like increasingly with men working remote, like I know a lot of guys who work from home. And so I think, you don't have the same kind of interactions with coworkers.
Yeah, you don't even get it during the day. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're not developing the same kind of relationship.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're not just sitting around shooting the breeze while you're getting a coffee or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's one of those where, like, as I was thinking about it, a lot of it to me, like my mind immediately went to the school I worked at used to do, they called it donuts with dads.
Oh yeah.
Lots of schools do some version of this, where dads come down and have donuts with their kids.
Yeah.
And like some dads will show up, like they'll put it out in the community, and dads that don't have kids will show up to be a dad for the kid who doesn't have a dad.
Yeah.
So that he can show up, kind of thing. And I think, there's lots of ways to kind of get involved. And with that one, inevitably you're going to stand around and start shooting the breeze with somebody. And eventually you're going to find somebody that you connect with.
Yeah.
Now, and this is the part where I think one of the things, like one of the benefits of the more open verbal communication, when I was, I haven't found people here that are quite that open. Like I got a handful of people that'll hug me like every time they see me, but it's not quite the same. Like I just haven't found it yet. Right. I guess. Yeah. And so it tends to make me a little less bold. Right. Because I don't know what the reaction will be. And that's, for a lot of people, the vulnerability of putting myself out there, of saying, hey man, do you want to, get together and go get a drink or go bowling or whatever the thing
Yeah.
is, like go get a movie. Like you see it in TV shows. So you want me to go on a date with the dude?
Mm-hmm.
Well, sure, I guess if you want to call it that, but
Yeah.
that's not what you called it when you were 13. So why are you calling it that now?
Right.
Like when you were 13, you just call it hanging out. You want to
Yeah.
hang out? Yeah, let's go hang out.
Mm-hmm.
That can be a really hard step to take. And like I said, for me, I've found over the last year and a half of being here, not really a year and a half, but it's like I find myself back in that a little less willing to say, hey, let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Even though I was just talking to a guy on Sunday who happens to work for AMC, and he goes, hey man, anytime you want to go to a movie, he's like, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
And I love movies. Like I would go to a movie every friggin' week. I didn't take him up on the offer.
Yeah.
Like, and so it is like at some point you just kind of have to say, yeah, I'm going to risk it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you don't have someone to kind of like, I think like with you and like, I'm sure it's true with Rob, and I've found it. People are more willing to share with us the deeper stuff
Mm-hmm.
because they know what we do for a living.
Yeah.
And it's not that they're looking for free advice. They just know that we're not going to like make fun of them, and it's not going to be awkward for us because we do it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so the guy comes and is a little more willing to say like, yeah, like I want to be doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're, like, yeah, okay, then let's go do it. For a lot of people, that's a hard, right, to even get to the point of like, yeah, I'm feeling disconnected. I'm feeling lonely.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I feel rambly and
no, I think it's
disconnected. But
I think we've said it before that, just assume every guy you see, is lonely and doesn't know it.
Yeah.
And I think probably the thing that we identify with maybe more readily, is the idea of like feeling kind of like flatlined.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have that outing and you like all of a sudden come alive in a way that you haven't been alive in a long time, because you're just like joking around or, playing some sport that you haven't played in forever, or, talking about some hobby or whatever. Right. Then I think that's when guys are like, oh, hey, this was cool. Right.
Mm-hmm.
We should do this again. And, I think that sometimes is the first indicator that like, oh, I am lonely and bored and have nothing to look forward to, and every day's the same. And I'm probably made to feel bad, that I feel that way about the other things in my life, if that makes sense. Like I've heard a lot of guys say like, I just feel guilty that I'm not, super excited about going to birthday parties with my kids, or, even date nights, kind of like, just a blah. And I don't think that means, for a lot of guys anyway, that what they're not saying is like, these things don't interest me. I'd rather be doing something else. And like, I don't even really care about these things. It's more like without that other thing in my life, a part of me is just constantly off.
Yeah.
And so you don't enjoy anything. You can't really like feel close to anything or anyone if a part of you is completely dormant. And so, like reawakening that part of you that, that I think is just, it's funny how we talk about it like this, like it's some mysterious thing, but it's like, that's just a totally normal thing.
Yeah.
Like it's totally normal to want to talk to people who are more like you in specific ways, who understand you in, ways that other people don't.
Right.
And, like that should never be something that you think is like a luxury. Right. I mean, I get why we do, because it's
Right.
all the reasons we've said, but like, but it's super important, right? And if you willingly sacrifice it because you've been told that that's what you're supposed to do, I mean, there's no other way to put it other than like, that is a lie coming from some place of insecurity or possession.
Yeah.
From somebody else in your life,
Yeah.
or multiple people in your life. Like anybody who isn't saying, I want a close relationship with you, like you, right? Which means, I'm in full support of you being the healthiest version of yourself, because like you mean that much to me that I want more of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa, man saying that to whoever else he's talking. So I think, in so many ways, I think we slowly like move into, through adulthood, the idea that like our bodies are machines meant to serve,
Yeah.
the tasks or the aims of like productivity and, earning capacity and being a provider. And so, yeah, my body's a machine. The irony, and maybe it's not ironic, right? Because I think it's maybe a symbolic way of reconnecting with yourself. A lot of guys take way better care of their cars and tools
Yeah.
than they do of themselves, right? And but still treat their bodies like machines and then feel completely lost when that starts breaking down. And it's like, obviously age and stuff is, you
Right.
can't
It's gonna
control
play
how
its
things are
part.
going to happen, but
Right.
like, you wouldn't be like, if you had like your dream car, you wouldn't just let it sit and like rust and corrode and, never do any maintenance on it and then be like, well, I don't know why this thing's breaking down.
Right.
So, but I think all these things can just sound to a lot of men like, here's one more thing you should be doing and you're failing at it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the hard part of the conversation, is getting around like kind of an ego response to what you're saying. It's like, that's not that at all, man. I'm advocating for you and saying, all of these things are important. And then you're going to tell me all the people who tell you that you can't have those things, right? And your desire for low conflict is going to cause you to just cave to that, right? And so it can be a super exhausting walk out of that place of like loneliness and isolation. But I think that's why we need other men that are like, in the way that we communicate, not like, hey man, I'm not saying this isn't a way to communicate, because there are times where it's very effective, but it's not the only way, right? To say, hey man, you matter, and we really value you. We love you. We want what's best for you. Those are all good things, right? But sometimes it's like, hey, quit being a moron.
Yeah.
Right? Get over
Yeah.
yourself, get up. And I'm saying that just like that. Don't do this because you're going to get hurt. I'm saying that from a place of love, and you feel that, right? It's like you risk being bold with me because I matter to you. And I don't think that's just like what sometimes gets labeled as like a toxic masculinity version of helping somebody out. It, like, when you're a guy, you know what that means. I mean, if it's like, you're an idiot, no one wants to be with you, like,
Right.
that's a totally different thing. Like,
That's a totally
you're a loser
different
and
thing.
you're not measuring up. But if it's like, I'm going to be blunt with you, and you know why I care about you, and I'm trying to get your attention, and I'm willing to spend the time, pushing on you a little bit because this is important.
Well, I think so much of it comes with what comes after the statement, right? We've all been told, dude, you're a moron, don't do that.
Yeah.
And then we've all experienced both options for what comes next, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they continue to make fun and berate, and you're left feeling like a piece of crap. Or they tell you you're a moron, don't do that, and then help you find the better way or a
Yeah.
different way or whatever, right? Where they support you, that that they're still there for you. Even if they did just call you moron, and that's the nicest thing they said that day. Like,
Right.
you can still get that. I think as you were talking, like, one of the things that came to mind, right? This idea of, I want to be the best version of me. I think one of the mistakes that we often run into with, people when they get married is they think your spouse becomes your social life. And not only shouldn't they be like the entirety of your social identity, it's really not fair to them to put all that on them.
Yeah.
To say you need to meet every social need I have. Yeah, it's a long shot she's going to be able to do it, because again, like, I get something from, once a week coming and sitting and doing this with you and Rob.
Yeah.
That Jenner and I will have lots of similar conversations. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Or, last night, I played broom hockey.
Nice.
Yeah, which is a freaking crack up, and I'm too old, and my knee was shot by the end of the night. Like, I was limping all over the place once I got home. But again, like, it was just, like, connections were happening between a bunch of middle-aged dudes. Connections were happening between us, but then also between the kids that we were playing with.
Yeah.
This group of, 10 or about a dozen teenagers, where I think, yeah, like, we'll all laugh at broom hockey.
Yeah.
And I think, no, it doesn't need to be much. The other thing I thought of, like, I used to do once a year, sometimes twice a year, we would do Meat Fest, is what we called it. And everyone would show up and bring meat, and we would buy a bunch of bottled root beers and other, like, ginger beer and stuff like that. And then we'd bring lawn games, cornhole,
Nice. Yeah.
like lawn bowling. Someone brought spike ball, which was pushing the limits of what we said was allowed. Because our joking rule was, if you can play it while eating meat,
Yeah.
you can bring it. Right? You got to be able to, like, cornhole. I only needed one hand to play cornhole.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just little things, right? Like, you say, I'm gonna smoke meat. We're gonna play cornhole. No, you'll get 5-10 guys show up.
Yeah.
Like, they just will, because sure, I'll go stand outside and throw a beanbag for an hour and eat meat that someone else cooked.
Yeah.
But again, it does come back to that. You just have to put yourself out there. Like, I talked to a guy the other day, and there's just no way to do this stuff without vulnerability. Like, I told the guy, he's like, sometimes I don't even know what's wrong. And I said, okay, then say that. Like, she can see something's wrong. She brought it up. Yep, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to talk about it? I don't know what it is yet, so no. Like, dude, I will defend you all day long. If she comes back and says, I asked and he said this, be like, good.
Yeah.
Like, good for him. He's being honest with you. What are you looking for? Right? We can work on the next part. Let's start there. But I think, no, like, and he was avoiding it because of, like, well, the vulnerability involved in it.
Yeah.
And I think, right, oftentimes we always, not always, but we often want to avoid that vulnerability. The vulnerability of going up to someone that we've never hung out with and said, hey, do you want to hang out?
Yeah.
And I think, right, we can't get around it. At some point, we have to say, hey, let's do this.
Yeah.
Any last takeaways?
You've got to get to your doctor's appointment before
I
you
do.
slide all over the road.
Right. It's a real treat. Jenna went in this morning. She's like, she doesn't laugh very much. I was like, oh, great.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I go into situations like this, I just make smart mouth comments because it's how I manage my anxieties of being at the doctor's office. I'm like, great. She's not going to laugh at anything I say. It's going to suck.
Just look at you. What is wrong with this guy?
Well, Doc, that's why I'm here. So you can tell me everything that's wrong with me.
No, I would just say, like, take your loneliness as a serious sign,
Mm-hmm.
and test out openness, from your partner on making that a priority, and open your mouth with somebody about that. Like, doesn't have to be, hey, I'm lonely, right? But hey, I'm looking for something to do, like, a book club, some sort of meetup around some sport, or some event or something like that, right? Like, I think just take that first step and trust that if you keep moving in that direction, like, things will coalesce. But also, we just probably need to be better, actually, as I'm thinking about this, at putting resources out there for things that are happening and ideas. So maybe we can brainstorm on that. But also, yeah, take Valentine's Day as a day to just generally connect with people that mean something to you in your life. Yeah. And maybe throw a Bro-lentine. Sounds really dumb, but trying to think of other names that are
less dumb.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's the thing. Like, the only other one I could think of was Dudentines, and I think, no, that sounds like some weird German thing.
And you probably wouldn't, if you probably wouldn't get many takers if you said you're throwing a Cupid party.
Dude, that would be so awesome. Come get shot in the butt with an arrow of love.
Come wearing nothing but underwear and wings.
Oh, can you imagine?
Well, no, actually, dude, think about it. On our testosterone episodes, you're getting Cupided in the butt cheek anyway.
Yeah. See? Now just celebrate it with a bunch of other dudes. You can call it your tea party.
Butt stickers.
Oh,
that'll be the last time you got healthy male touch from, or since the last time, I guess, when you're playing sports and coach slapped you on the butt.
Now you're getting a sticker in the butt.
All right, man. Get to your doctor's appointment.
Yeah. Join us next time on the Manspace, everybody.
Peace.